Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving into a document that's so much more than just a rulebook. It's the blueprint, the very soul of the world's largest democracy, the Constitution of India. So let's get into the incredible promises it made. Right from the very first line, the Constitution makes a huge statement. This isn't just dry legal text. The preamble is a mission statement for an entire nation. And it's a promise made by the people for the people. So, this big promise is built on a few core ideas, words that really define the entire character and ambition of the nation. Let's break down what these powerful terms actually mean for India. Okay, first up, sovereign. This is the absolute bedrock. It declares that India is its own boss, plain and simple. It's free to make its own laws and control its own destiny without having to answer to any outside power. Now, here's a really fascinating piece of history for you. The words socialist and secular, they weren't actually in the original 1949 text. They were added way later in 1976, during a pretty intense time in Indian politics. Socialist was meant to show a commitment to bridging the gap between rich and poor, while secular made it official. The government doesn't play favorites with religion. And finally, we have democratic republic. This is where the power really comes back to you. Democratic means the government is chosen by the people in elections, and republic means the head of state, the president, isn't a king or queen who inherits the title, but is also an elected official. So in short, the buck stops with the citizens. So with the nation's identity locked in, the preamble lays out its 4 huge goals. This is the kind of society it's trying to build for every single person. One based on justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity, which is really just a spirit of a common community. These are the fundamental aims that drive the whole document. All right, so the preamble gives us the why. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty and see how the Constitution actually builds the what, the real framework of the nation itself. The very first article just cuts right to the chase. It gives the country its 2 official names, India and Bharat. But you gotta pay attention to the specific wording here, a union of states. Now that phrase is very deliberate. It means the Indian Union is indivisible. States can't just pack up and decide to leave. Okay, now that the nation itself is defined, we get to what a lot of people call the very conscience of the Constitution. This part isn't about land or borders. It's about you. This is where your fundamental rights are laid out and guaranteed. And we're not just talking about vague ideas here. These rights are super organized, broken down into 6 core categories. They cover pretty much everything, from equality and personal freedom to protecting you from exploitation and guaranteeing your right to practice your religion and preserve your culture. And here is a perfect example of just how revolutionary these rights are. The Constitution doesn't just talk about equality in some abstract way. Nope. Article 17 takes a direct swing at a deeply rooted historical injustice, completely abolishing the practice of untouchability and making it a crime. Article 19 is another absolute cornerstone. It guarantees those core freedoms that are really the lifeblood of any democracy. The right to speak your mind, to gather peacefully, to live and work wherever you want. These are the rights that make a real, vibrant public life even possible. But, this brings up a really important question. Are these freedoms a total free-for-all? Does freedom of speech, for example, mean you can say absolutely anything you want, whenever you want, with 0 consequences? And the Constitution has an answer for that. It's all about balance. While you have these fundamental freedoms, the government can impose what it calls reasonable restrictions to protect things like national security or public safety. It's this constant dance between your individual liberty and the well-being of society as a whole.
Out of all the rights, Article 21 is, it might just be the most important. It's the foundation for all the others. This one simple sentence guarantees the most basic right of all, the right to life and personal liberty. It's a promise that the state can't just act against its citizens on a whim.
And here's the kicker. These rights aren't just empty words on a page. Article 32 is the ultimate safety net. It gives every single citizen the power to go straight to the Supreme Court if they feel their rights have been violated. This is the mechanism that gives all these freedoms some real teeth. Okay, so we've looked at the rights that are guaranteed to you. Now let's flip the script and look at the instructions given to the government. If fundamental rights are what the state can't do to you, these principles are what the state should be trying to do for you. And it is absolutely crucial to understand the big difference here. Your fundamental rights are legally enforceable. You can literally take the government to court over them. Directive Principles, on the other hand, not so much. They're more like aspirational goals, a moral compass designed to guide government policy over the long haul. And these goals are incredibly ambitious. They're directing the government to work towards everything from social welfare and equal pay for men and women to local self-government and even international peace. They basically paint a picture of the kind of nation India's always striving to become.
So we've covered the state's responsibilities, and we've covered the citizens' rights, but there's one last piece of the puzzle: the duties that come along with being a citizen of this republic.
This section was also added in 1976, and it acts as a kind of moral to-do list. It's a reminder to citizens that with these incredible rights come some pretty big responsibilities, like respecting the Constitution, promoting harmony, developing a scientific mindset, and protecting public property. It's all about being an active, responsible citizen. So, when you put it all together, from the huge vision in the preamble to the rights of every person, the goals for the government, and the duties of citizens, you see a complete, dynamic framework. This was never meant to be some dusty old relic on a shelf. It's a living document, designed to adapt and evolve as the nation grows. And that leaves us with one final, massive question to think about. This document was written over 75 years ago for a country that was just starting out. Today, its words govern the lives of more than 1 billion people. So how well is the reality of modern India living up to the incredible promises that were made in this text all those years ago?